Yeah. What helped is that the properties I was buying were turnkey. So they
Okay.
were owned by somebody else. They already had leases in place. They already had tenants in place. And so I could pretty much just start by adopting their leases and their processes and some of their connections. And then I built my own relationships on top of that. And that's kind of really what led me to where I'm at right now.
Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Pros Podcast. I am Micah Johnson, and today I am joined by Mark Lucido. And I've been looking forward to talk to him because he's done something in real estate that I don't hear about very often, where he got into the commercial space right out of the gate. Mark, glad to have you, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Nice to be here.
Excellent, man. I think our listeners are really going to get something to take away out of this. For those people that want to hear about commercial and want to just dig in out of the gate, I think this is going to be really powerful. So let's dive straight in. Tell me about the main focus you're working on these days in the markets that you're in.
Yeah, no, very, very good question. So my main focus is growing. I want to say growing my business, but the types of properties that I've purchased, being commercial properties, they're a little older in nature, and so my main focus is stabilizing the properties. When I've acquired the properties, they've had a lot of deferred maintenance on them, and the tenants with good tenants, very strong tenants, but the market rates are not competitive. So all the rents are below market. So it's really difficult to try and navigate that curve and grow the business. And so I'm doing well. 2 years into my most recent purchase, and it's starting to stabilize.
And where are you doing that at? What markets do you own in?
Yeah, so I have 2 commercial properties in downtown Carrollton, Texas, very close to the area that's been revitalized, and then I have and both of those properties are office warehouse type spaces, so they are multi-tenant, and then I have retail space, a small duplex in Euless. So those are the 3 properties I own, 2 markets though, or 2 segments. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, so let's get started at the beginning then. Tell me about how you chose just commercial. So often, you and I were discussing this before we started recording of a lot of folks go single family residential and then jump to commercial later, but you skipped that step. You said, I'm just going straight for commercial. Tell me about that. Through the thought
Yeah.
process, what got you into it.
Yeah, so, a little background on myself. I grew up in Dallas, so I'm familiar with the area. Grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, learning accounting and operations from my parents' business. 20 years in software IT, but I've never felt secure and, always changing jobs every few years. So I was dreaming about real estate and as a way to escape the corporate grind and diversify my income. And around 2015, I discovered the Bigger Pockets podcast and the Robert Kiyosaki books, which completely shifted my mindset, especially the cash flow quadrant. And then after losing my parents and receiving a life insurance payout, I finally had the capital to start investing. And like most investors, I began evaluating residential properties, but the numbers just didn't make sense. In Dallas at that time, the market felt very saturated with the growth that we had. There were a lot of cash buyers and investors bidding the prices up, and the valuations just didn't seem right. Especially when you were looking at the 1% rule, and it just didn't make sense that a renter was going to pay $3,200 a month for rent. So that's when I pivoted to commercial.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Okay. Now, when you made that pivot, was there a certain commercial class you were looking for? How'd you ultimately land on what you have purchased?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. My initial thought was triple net retail spaces, because those seemed the most obvious. What was interesting though is there was a broker in my neighborhood who I became friends with, a commercial broker. Our kids were in daycare together, and I reached out to him. And his primary expertise was in warehouse spaces. And so he kind of introduced me to the office warehouse units that I found. And the first unit I bought was roughly $415,000, so about the same price as a house, but it had 8 tenants, and so when I started running the numbers, it was very obvious that the cash flow was gonna be very good to me.
Very interesting. So having that connection, that makes a lot of sense. It gets you there. So for someone that's interested in commercial, hasn't done it before, what was like that? What's the hardest thing that was to get going? And then what was it that was like, no, this is really what I want to do and making you dive in?
Yeah. What helped is that the properties I was buying were turnkey. So they
Okay.
were owned by somebody else. They already had leases in place. They already had tenants in place. And so I could pretty much just start by adopting their leases and their processes and some of their connections. And then I built my own relationships on top of that. And that's kind of really what led me to where I'm at right now. So that's where I started at. Did I answer your question? I don't know if I veered off topic or not.
It's close. So in that early decision phase, because this is where a lot of folks that I've encountered, commercial seems like a scary word, especially compared to single family residential. So when you were shifting gears into that and deciding that's what it was, what was the quote unquote hardest part of up front of like
Yeah.
getting into it?
Yeah, just understanding all the nuances, and to be honest with you, I'm still learning. Like, my newest property, I've been in this close to 10 years now, and even on my newest property, I'm finding that if I have a vacancy that I'm trying to fill, in this particular property, it's zoned differently, so you have to really look at the zoning and what the acceptable uses are. But there's always something that's coming up, for example, evictions. Evictions are a lot easier with commercial properties. So just learning that eviction process. I think in general, what I can summarize is that I stepped into it. It was a smaller property to operate with only 8 tenants, so I stepped into it with the mindset that I was gonna operate it myself so that I can learn from it, and then that's really what I grew the confidence from there, and just continued on with it.
Got you. Now you mentioned just a little bit ago that you came from an entrepreneurial family. Was there any of
Mhm.
the business that you were working for before that helped with this idea of working in commercial?
Not a lot. So the business they had was an auto body repair shop, in North Dallas, probably one of the biggest ones in the '80s. But, my dad what I learned from my dad was that he fixed everything himself. If he needed to expand, he did all the work himself. And that's where I grew the confidence that if my dad could do it, then I could do it as well. So, yeah,
Gotcha.
he wasn't afraid to step in.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
And that's the key feature of an entrepreneur, is what I would typically say. Our proclivity to action is always tilted towards, I can do that. And sometimes to our detriment, we say we can do a lot of things, but that's powerful in that way. Now, so tell me where you currently are. Where are you at in your business right now, and where are you trying to get to?
Yeah, so I think, right now I've stabilized my most recent purchase. I'm starting to see some positive cash flow from that. Where I'd like to go, I'd like to find another property, but the current interest rate environment is prohibitive. Back when I acquired these properties, that was the other thing I had to learn was commercial lending, how to how to position the properties, whether to own them outright or whether to put them in individual LLCs, forming relationships with attorneys and things of that nature. But I think where I want to go is I want to find another property if the numbers make sense. But with current interest rates, it's hard to find that. And I'd also like to start networking and building a network of investors that would be willing to participate in my opportunities.
Excellent. Yeah, private capital, man. It's a game changer in the space when you start to get access to it, for sure. It brings a lot to your plate that you didn't have before. Now, are you full-time real estate, or what's going on there?
No, I'm still working in corporate America. I have a full-time W-2 job with the largest health insurance company in America. To be honest with you, I'm not going to use their name because it is a publicly traded company. But I'm a software product manager full time, and I think with AI coming around, there's a lot of pressure on us right now in the IT industry, and so commercial affords me that flexibility. It doesn't have a lot of high demand. The tenants have to take care of the spaces themselves in terms of maintenance and repairs. And then I actually office out of one of my properties, which is the office I'm in right now.
Nice.
My wife works from home, so both of us trying to work from home with one office just didn't make sense.
I heard that, and heck, man, why not work in the building you own? And that works out too. Okay, so I think that's fascinating because in real estate, a lot of times what people run into in the crunch trying to switch is that time factor. So for you, this commercial move hasn't really taken up all your time while also giving you this chance.
Correct. And, I've got between the 3 properties, I have 27 doors.
Okay.
So it's quite a few tenants, but,
Yeah.
they typically because they're other businesses, mom and pop type businesses, their hours are my hours. That's what makes it nice. I'm not getting calls after hours or anything like
Mm.
that. If there's a problem, I do have a problem that I can't fix. I do have resources available to me to help, do any kind of repairs or anything. And if I'm being on site, if something happens, I'm aware of it immediately. It doesn't go very long before I get it resolved.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Excellent, man. That is handy. That is handy. So, in your journey of buying these properties, is there a particular kind that you look for? Is there a particular way that they look? Like, what is it about one? Let's set the interest rate issue aside, just looking at property specifically. What is it about one that makes you more interested, and which ones do you shy away from?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I actually have a blog where I memorialize my journey along the way, and I can
Okay.
mention lucidlandlord.blogspot.com. I need to probably find a better platform, but I'm using the blogger platform right now. But I actually have a post out there about finding your niche. And that's where I acquired my first property was the commercial the office retail, or I'm sorry, office warehouse space. The second property was retail. So I tried to diversify a bit. And there's pros and cons to both. I think if I were to acquire a larger retail unit, I could handle it. It's not too different than what I'm doing with the office warehouse spaces. I think I would shy away from pure office, mainly because of work from home. A lot of companies are still working from home, and so there's a lot of inventory out there.
Interesting. Yeah, that big change post 2020 where working from home became quite normal. There was I'm just south of Jacksonville, and I saw a lot of properties in Jacksonville just end up vacant pretty quick after
Wow.
that. I know for my friends that got into it, the buying process of getting the property. Let's dig in on that a little bit of what's it like when you're going through it? What do you need to be thinking about when you've just we've decided you want to get into it, now you're looking at properties or
Yeah.
you're open to look for properties, right? You're starting to dig in. What is it that you paid attention to and you think could help somebody else looking to enter the space themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is part of what you have to learn coming into something that you're not familiar with. It was a learning curve, but, fortunately, because of the broker that I have the relationship with, he's able to guide me on a lot of these things that I'm unaware of. So, for example, I was looking at an automotive property at one point. So he warned me as we were looking at it, you better get some environmental studies done so that, that you don't run into anything further down the line. And as soon as I did, there were some red flags that came up, and so I backed out of the deal. But it's stuff like that. As long as you have somebody that's helping you that you trust to guide you along the way, then it makes it a lot easier. But I think in general, what I look for, my niche primarily is the office warehouse. So if one of those comes up, it's really exciting to me because it allows me to capture more market share. The thing about office warehouses, there's actually not a lot of inventory for smaller, less than 1,000 square feet spaces. And so I found a real niche in that, maybe 800 square feet to 1,200 square feet. And I've been able to stay 100% occupied over 10 years. If a unit
Man, that's
goes
killer.
vacant, I'm able to fill it pretty quickly.
Now, what kind of tenants typically end up in the office warehouse space? Who do you target?
Yeah. Tenants vary. So I have photographers, I have HVAC repair companies, I have plumbers. I've had barbers. The my main property is in close to downtown Carrollton on a main thoroughfare. They're building 200 townhomes across the street from me right now, and so it could serve as retail also. At least the zoning supports it. But that again, that's where you have to look at the zoning to see what kind of tenants you can afford in there.
That's an excellent point. Not something you typically deal with much in single family is checking those zonings to make sure what can be supported. So in the single family world, a lot of times it's kind of difficult to find a quote unquote broker that helps you with that process. So many of those are direct to seller marketing, actually trying to cut that person out, where it seems like in commercial, it's way more of a cohesive relationship for working with a broker. Tell me about how you found the one you work with. I think you said they were in daycare together with your children. And then
Yeah.
what to look for in a good broker? Like what separates a good one from someone getting in says, you know what, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, it's primarily all about the relationship, and trust. Those are the key factors. It's somebody that I was friends with before I decided to make the move, and when I decided to make the move, because I am so relationship based, he was the first person I called. I've talked to other brokers occasionally, but it's a matter of trust. And so that's the biggest thing is you need to make sure that you can trust that person. Now, some of the properties I've actually found on LoopNet. So LoopNet is one of the a key resource for looking for properties. He'll send me lists or I'll send him something I found on LoopNet, and we it's a strong collaborative relationship with him.
What would for someone that's gonna develop that relationship, what are some key points of building it that they should think about when they're, building that trust with them?
Yeah, I think if finding a broker that specializes in the niche that you're going to pursue, I think because he introduced me to warehouse and because that's his niche and it's become my niche, it's a good fit. But if talking to a broker who focuses primarily on office space or focuses on retail may not be a good fit. It just that's I think that's probably the biggest thing to look for is just find somebody who's going to complement what your
Okay.
goals are.
So even in that broker space, it's niched down. You don't want one that says, "Oh, I do them all." Like, you want one that's really lined up with exactly what you're looking for. That's
Right.
interesting. That's
They
very
you know
interesting.
the commercial brokers they do cover a wide space, but they do have their specific niches also.
Okay. And then you mentioned LoopNet. Yeah, there's some different tools that you use in the commercial space for sure. When you're searching for a property, is there any like secret sauce to helping you find what you want to look for, or is there how do you go about that process?
Yeah, I start with LoopNet primarily, and I have some search tools that send me notifications on a daily basis, and if it's interesting, I'll look at it. I think the key there, and that's what's interesting about commercial, is it's not valued the same as residential, which was another factor of why I pivoted to commercial. With residential, there's a lot of emotion involved. And so people tend to base the value of their home on their emotions. But with commercial, it's purely revenue based. It's what the net operating income is for the property. You really can't just go by square footage and dollar per square foot. So that I found that reassuring because it's truly a true value on the property, and you can influence that too. So as I've grown my rents and increased my rents for my tenants, the valuation of the property increases as well.
That's an interesting fact too. There's a guy I follow on X. He's called Strip Mall Guy, and he does purely commercial. But I was reading some of the stuff he puts out about that the ability in the commercial space to directly affect your valuation, where really in single family you don't have that ability. You can value add some, but you're basically just flipping the house. Like, you're making it from ugly to nice, where in your world you have much more direct effect on how to make your property more valuable. What did you see as one of the bigger levers to do that?
Yeah, and your profitability. So, and this kind of goes back to your other question earlier about what I look for in a property. So, number one, I look for a property that doesn't have a lot of repairs, or if there's a lot of repairs that I can sustain the stability period. I found kind of a pattern where roughly 2 to 3 years to stabilize a property with deferred maintenance, and then also the opportunity where like the rents may be below market. So I'll look at properties around that may be advertising for vacancies, and they'll leave their number. I'll call those numbers to find out what the competing prices are, and that's how I can find out what the market rates
Yeah.
are. And then, of course, my broker can also run some reports from his systems to provide those competing market rents. But similar to residential, you're looking for opportunities where you can increase the value through improvements, and that's also what's nice about the property. My most recent purchase had a lot of deferred maintenance. I've had to replace 10 HVAC units over the last 2 years, over $100,000. There was the roofs needed replacement. So the property has 4 buildings. So I've replaced 3 of the 4 roofs, but all those replacements are capital improvements. And so I get the benefit of, I think it's 279, Section 279 deductions. So in those first 2 years, if I'm making those improvements and the property is not doesn't have a positive net income, I can roll those depreciation deductions forward to future years when I am profitable. So
Oh, that's handy. Yeah, and we
yeah.
were talking a little bit before, you do your own accounting too, correct?
Yep. Yep. It's something I learned from my mom is do my own accounting, do my own taxes. And it really, what's nice about that and why I recommend that, at least even initially, just to get an understanding of where your expenses are, where those levers are that you can affect the valuations on your property.
Yeah, it's at least knowing, right? What's actually happening so you can take advantage of it, whether you end up doing it forever or not, at least know. Kind of like owners of companies, if you don't know a position, right? How can you help somebody do it? So that
Yeah.
it's really digging in there. That's fascinating, man.
I'll give you a great example. Over the last 10 years, I've had 4 tenants that have gone into bad debt. So not a lot. And each bad debt, typically I end up losing maybe two to $3,000. But,
Okay.
over 10 years that accumulates. So I asked myself, well, is there a pattern I can find? So I use QuickBooks for my accounting. I was able to run a report from QuickBooks that showed days to pay, how long it takes that tenant to pay their rent. I was able to take that and then run that through Chat GPT and help me identify patterns. And it was able to produce some graphs, and it came up with a statistic called drift. So there's basically 3 phases of drift, and you can actually identify the tenant going into drift sooner and help to minimize your losses. So by being plugged in and doing my own accounting and having those reports available to me, I was able to leverage AI to do some of that.
Now, have you noticed beyond that, is there a certain type of tenant that you quote unquote avoid because of that they tend to drift more? Or is there like when you're thinking about who you're going to put in, how much does that go into it?
Yeah. So this particular tenant was a barber. I've had 2 barbers, and neither one were successful.
Mm,
And in fact, yesterday I had an inquiry on one of the vacancies, and he's a barber. And I said, the zoning supports it, but honestly, I've had two barbers, and neither one has been successful. If I'm going to consider it, I would need at least 3 months security deposit. So, it's something I might consider as long as you're giving me 3 months in advance. And then that way, if you vacate in the middle of the night, I have all that rent, to cover the losses.
you've hedged your bet a little bit.
Yeah.
Fascinating, because I mean, it's a whole different world that opens up when you start thinking of tenants and not living
Yeah.
in a house, not just a renter. They're not going there to live. This is where they're going to work. And
Exactly.
how that business flows, what's gonna happen over time. One I've heard is tough is, karate. That's from that guy that I follow on X. He's not big on putting karate folks in any of his strip malls because that one tends to fall out quick. Now it just fascinates me because I live in St. Augustine, Florida, and you drive around to certain places and you always kind of see the same vacancy in the same places, if that makes sense. And it's like, so why doesn't that work there? What is it about that spot that makes that one not work? I get fascinated by stuff like that.
Yeah, and insurance has a lot to play with that too. And my insurance may prohibit like tattoo parlors or a CBD, anything like that. So, there's external factors that are involved as well.
That brings up a great point. So someone looking to get into it, including like that, what you're just talking about insurance, what are some things they need to pay attention to in terms of that, how to find those tenants?
So first and foremost, zoning, and you can get that information from the city. So the city has a list of approved uses or acceptable uses for the given zoning of the property. And then secondarily, you would want to look at your insurance coverage to see what if there's anything that they prohibit as well. And then of course just your gut feeling. I'm finding that AI and tools like ChatGPT can also give you a lot of information. So I always check that as well and incorporate that into a lot of my decisions.
Man, that's fascinating. So, okay, we talked about where your blog for a second, Lucid Investor, correct? That's where people can find you. Anywhere else where they can get a hold of you at if they want to find out more about what you got going on?
Yeah, it's lucidlandlord.blogspot.com. So it's the blogger, the platform. That's really my main presence on the internet right now. I do have a Facebook page. And I mainly have that so I can advertise on Facebook Marketplace for vacancies. Tend to get a lot of. It's kind of interesting. That's something else I had to learn is how I could advertise minimally without having to go through my broker, who's going to charge a commission. And Marketplace tends to be my best resource for filling vacancies. But I've also,
Interesting.
yeah, it really is. I've also tried other resources like Craigslist. That worked initially, but as Marketplace came online and people started adopting that, that became my primary marketing tool.
I've heard that for single family, but not for commercial before. That's fascinating, man. Yeah, because Craigslist was the place. That was where everything was, and now Marketplace has definitely taken over that area. Well, Mark, man, I really appreciate your time, your story, and your perspective. It's again, I love hearing about how folks get into the business, what they're doing in it, because we each all have our own pull on why we do what we do. And for those of you tuning in, if you got any value from this, please subscribe to Real Estate Pros podcasts. And we've got more conversations coming up with operators just like Mark who are out there building real businesses. Okay. We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.